The answer's no. But if you want to know why, just bear with me a little bit longer. Seekers of the Storm is finally out after the long wait we had to endure of about like 9 months or so. And what do I think of the update so far? I think it's a general consensus at this point, but the update is pretty underwhelming from what we've been given. With all the bugs, items, and all-around balance changes, the update doesn't really bring that much to the table. Now, as someone who only has 600 hours in the game, take some of my opinion with a grain of salt, as I'm not the greatest Risk of Rain player. I'm going to be going through some talking points that are good with the update and bad with the update, to allow you to form your own conclusion with the evidence I'm giving you. I'm going to give my own biased opinion as to why I say no at the end. Timestamps at the bottom if you really want to get to some points that you don't know about. There were 6 new maps added in the DLC. Well, I guess 5 if you don't count alternate versions. Treeborn Colony, the standard and the gold version. A small map containing connecting tree islands with more emphasis on platforming away from enemies rather than taking cover. Reformed Altar, an underground map containing ruins of a once flourishing city with various altars and monoliths housing the new survivor, Chef. Helminth Hatchery, a well-structured nether fortress. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't gotten to play on this map yet, so I'd rather not share experiences I do not possess. I'm sure I can find some gameplay somewhere, so make of it what you will. It looks cool to be sure. The Shattered Abodes, a very open Stage 1 map with various outer points scattered around for encouraging exploration and movement options. And Prime Meridian, the map containing this DLC's boss, littered similarly to Commencement in the way some platforms are connected together, although encouraging more tactful positioning and quick maneuverability while you make your way to the False Sun, and my personal favorite map. These stages are phenomenal add-on to the DLC, especially Shattered Abodes and Hatchery, as it doesn't require you to go completely separate path to find them. Although, with that praise lies the complaint that I have with these. They're all good maps, but most of them can be pretty well blended together with things like the color palette being mostly green, and aesthetics. And you won't even see half of them without choosing to go to the False Sun, which in some ways can be good or bad depending on how you look at it. I'm gonna say that it's a good thing because, I mean, sometimes some of these maps, especially the Treeborn Colony, has some pretty garbage enemies, but let's just call it a good thing for now. But these maps definitely aren't something to just look over. Overall, these get a nice thumbs up from me as an add-on. There were 17 new items that were added into Seekers of the Storm, which, when looking at the previous DLC with 41 new items, doesn't really seem all that impressive, and you'll probably understand why in a second, because an argument can be made for quantity over quality, but since there's quite a lot to go over, I'm going to do a bit of rapid fire and put the items into 2 categories since the DLC just came out and not everything has been tested out and such. Either the item fits into the category of good, and by good I mean useful in literally any way whatsoever, but I'm being a bit broad, but you'll kind of see what I mean, and bad. Not really any explanation for that needed. Alright, let's get into it. Warped Echo. On damage taken, 50% of the damage is dealt immediately, while the other 50% is delayed for 3 seconds. The effect cools down for 10 seconds before reactivating. Now, I just learned yesterday that the 50% is also taken. I thought the item genuinely just, like, split damage you were taken, but since I learned about the whole other 50% being taken, some garbage, throw it in the fucking trash, bad. Bolstering Lantern. When below 50% health, receive a damage increase of 20%, plus 20% when stacked. Now, this is the only white item that I can genuinely see being used in a pretty decent amount of scenarios, because I thought when it said below 50% health, I thought I was talking about the same as like watches and such, but if you're playing someone like Rex who gets hurt a whole lot, or if you're just bad at the game, I guess, I can see this as being pretty good, and plus 20% when stacked is fucking insane. So I think that goes in the good category. Chronic Expansion. Increases the player's damage by 10% for every 5 enemies killed, lasting as long as the player remains in combat, plus 5% damage when stacked. Well, the whole 5% damage thing is kind of, you know, useless considering what we just saw in the last one. And also the 5 enemies killed lasting as long as the player remains in combat is, it's a little niche considering what you're doing. I can consider it during like a boss or something like that, but the whole plus 5% leaves a lot to be desired. So let's just say bad. Knockback Fin. 7.5% chance on hit to knock enemies into the air, plus 7.5% increased chance on stack. Height knocked is also increased. Now, this item, I'm going to be honest, I fucking hate this item. Garbage. The whole point of, like, since I am an artificer main, every time I pick this fucking shit up, I always want to scrap it, because when I throw my M1 and the first M1 launches them into the air and all my other 3 miss, I want to kill myself instantly. Get this shit in the garbage. Antler shield. 55% chance on being hit to reflect 10% damage back onto the attacker, 5% increased chance to proc, and 5% damage reflection increased on stack. Now, this was also one of those deceptive items that I thought would be really good until I found out it reflects only 10% of the damage, and it's only a 55% chance of being like a chance to reflect. The 55% chance is nice if the 5% chance to proc was not the thing that was increased, because only 5% chance, that kind of sucks a little bit. I suppose if you have maybe 10 of these things, that pretty much maxes out the chance to reflecting, and that's also 100% damage back onto the attacker that hit you initially. But in that same vein, you kind of have to get a run with it, and I'm not sure anybody's going to really be investing that at the same time. So, because I can see it being good, but at the same time, it just kind of seems like free scrap more than anything. And I think maybe just having one on you may not be the worst thing in the world, but I think most of the time I'm scrapping it. Chance stall. 20% chance to get a higher rarity item from chance shrines on success, plus 8% chance on stack. Now, the whole like plus 8% chance on stack, obviously not super duper good. I mean, 8% definitely isn't the worst thing in the world. It could be 5%, but I think just having just one of these in your inventory honestly is pretty good. And I think this item's at least pretty decent in general just to have in a run, so I'd give it a good. Prayer beads. By absorbing experience, stores 20% of the player's stats per item level up. On removal, gain all these stored stats, plus 5% increase per stack. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not entirely sure, like 100% sure what this item does, but if it's taking experience away from me, I need to get that stat back by scrapping it. That's free scrap to me. Luminous Shot. Using the secondary skill charges the next primary attack, dealing 150% additive damage per charge up to 5 times. Stacks increase the 150% by 25% per charge. Max charge increased by 1 per stack. Now, this one seems pretty good on a select few survivors, mainly those that like do at least pretty decent damage with M1s and aren't multi-shot, which is not a lot. In that same vein, the ones that I feel like I could be good at, like just off the top of my head, maybe Voidling, because his M1 is at least okay. You're probably going to be using your M2 not that many times before you shoot your M1. So I just think it's 90% of the time bad on all survivors, so I'm going to throw it in the trash. Sale Star. Gain an extra item on the first chest open per stage. Stacking the item grants an additional 5% chance to gain more than 2 items. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. Picking up one Sale Star guarantees you an additional item on the first chest. Yes, I mean any chest, that means golden chest. But stacking that item yields more of a chance to get more than 2 items from any given chest, with a maximum of 5 item potential. Here's a graph detailing how many stacks would yield what percentage. I'm not going to go into super duper detail, but pause if you wish to know fully, or just go onto the wiki. I'll link it in the description. I promise you it's at least interesting to look at, and it'll get you a better understanding of what it does, if you just didn't happen to get it from here. Unstable transmitter. When reaching below 25% health, the player explodes, dealing 350% damage to nearby enemies and teleporting to a random location with a 2-minute cooldown, plus an additional 350% damage and negative 5% cooldown reduction when stacked. Now, this one is some fat garbage. I'm shaking that straight in the trash, because goddamn, if this requires me to go below 25% health, that's pretty much my watch is gone. I don't want that. Noxious Thorn. 25% chance on being hit to inflict nearby enemies with 2 stacks of bleed. If enemies are already inflicted with 1 or more stackable debuff, add 1 of those debuffs instead. Additive 1 stacks of bleed or 1 debuff stack when multiple thorns are acquired. Now, this one is, I mean, I kind of worded it a bit weirdly, but pretty much when you get hit, it either adds to a debuff that's currently on there, or if they're not debuffed, they get stacks of bleed. This one, I'm going to be honest, it's going in the trash. I'm scrapping that shit as soon as physically possible. Now, I think if you've noticed up until this point, a little bit of a trend among these items, whereas the last update, Survivors of the Void, had things like Opal and Saber Spaces, where they would give you items where if you got hit, it was more defensive, where you would take less damage or you wouldn't take any damage at all. But this update is more, if you get hit, that's when you get, like, you pretty much go Super Saiyan, right? You get new abilities, you get to debuff them. If you get hit, you get to explode if you get hit, all that good stuff. It's more offensive items when you get hit, which to me kind of rubs me the wrong way, because I don't want to have to put myself in danger or in order to do more damage. I just want to do more damage in general, especially if some of those items eliminate some of my exponential and multiplicative damage like watches. So you can kind of see where the dichotomy is in these two updates, and how some of them affect your damage and gameplay. Although it's interesting, it's not really that good in practice. Growth Nectar. When a given survivor has 5 or more unique buffs active at a time, gain 20% bonus stat for 5 seconds, additional 20% when stacked. Now, look, I understand some people really don't like this item, and I'm going to be honest, I really don't either. But 20% bonus stats is pretty much 2 Irradiant Pearls. It's pretty much equivalent to 2 Irradiant Pearls. Now, the problem is it's only for 5 seconds, which just leaves a lot to be desired, because 5 seconds is not going anywhere. If whenever you stacked it, you got more seconds with the buff, that would make this a whole lot better. I'm going to put it in good, but just know if this were like a tier list, this would be going at like bottom C. War Bonds. Yields 75 gold based on current level and survivor level at the start of each stage. The 75 gold is scaled when stacked. Now, the wiki says the item scales to give the gold equivalent to 3 small chests on a given stage. So let's say that you spawn in and a small chest costs $100. So you'd be getting $300. When I say the plus 75 gold scaled, I'm pretty much saying that it gives you gold equivalent to 3 small chests again. So you'd be spawning in with 600 instead of 300 if you had 2 war bonds. But the wiki also says this item sucks, which, you know what, fair enough. Runic Lens, 5% chance on hit to summon a meteor on the target, dealing 2000% damage, plus 1% chance to proc, and plus 50% damage on stack. Now, this item is a little weird, because every time you proc this item, from what I'm reading here on the wiki, every time you proc this item, it increases its chance to proc and damage by the amount it would if you stack it. So let's say you proc it on an enemy, it would increase the chance to proc by 6% and the damage to 2050, and additive from there. I don't know how long that whole procking thing, increase and damage thing lasts for, since it doesn't really say on the wiki, but I'm gonna assume it's either permanent or it's a per stage thing. Who knows? Sounds good to me though, so I'm putting in the good one. Sonorous Whispers. When a large monster or elite are killed, both have respective chances to drop an item. Large monsters drop one 100% of the time, and elites have a 50% chance to drop an item, plus 5% when stacked. Now, this item is fucking busted. This item is broken. I'm telling you right now, if you find this in a run, you pretty much guaranteed win, because 15%, this item is pretty much the artifact of sacrifice. I think it's the artifact of sacrifice, but it's just way better in every way. So this item's definitely going to the good. From where we're looking at the DLC, this is pretty much one of the best red items. Electric Boomerang, 15% chance on hit to fire an electric boomerang that travels a short distance before returning and dealing 30% damage and stunning all enemies on hit, plus 30% damage per stack. This one, honestly, I like this item because it's kind of like Shuriken, but like if it removed the part that I don't like about it, which is the insta-proc, because I kind of like it more how it just kind of shoots all willy-nilly and it's like a percentage chance and luck instead of it being a status, or instead of it being an active buff. So I like it better, so I'm going to put it in good. I don't really care what other people think because I think it's cool. Long-standing Solitude. Gold is converted to experience. On level up, gain a free unlock for your next purchase. Anything that costs gold is increased by 100%. As a quick tip, just in case some of you are super gung-ho on gambling on lunar items like me, this item makes it possible to soft lock yourself on Gilded Coast after reaching level 94 or higher and not being able to purchase all the shrines. And it also makes the Gilded Coast a pain. So if you're planning on picking up this item during a run, pick it up after that, not before. Also, this item makes it impossible to use Haoshin shrines, as your gold is non-existent before you're able to use it towards the shrine, so keep that in mind. And lastly, Seed of Life. Revives the user when killed or dead allies on activation, consumed on use. I mean, it's a revive. What more do you want? Stick it in good. Good lord, that took forever. But you can see here that a good chunk of these items are a lot to take in, and some of them have some pretty lengthy descriptions as well as a lot of nuance to them. Although that doesn't always make an item good, you can see by this chart that it doesn't really make them all totally useless. Unless we're talking about Knockback Fin. That thing is nobody's favorite item. Let's talk about something good for this update, just to freshen up the palette a little. The music, as per usual in this update, fucking slaps the shit out of my big ass ears. Chris has managed to outdo himself once again with this soundtrack. I would always see some of these premiered on YouTube and would tune into them as soon as I was given the chance to. So, Chris, if you're listening, brother, round of applause for almost single-handedly carrying my bias towards this update. You are truly one of the best things to happen to this franchise. Alright, I'll get this to get out of my mouth for a second. To wrap this section up, let me give you a few tracks in case you don't want to listen to the entire thing. Out of the 10 tracks in total, here are my personal favorites. Forgot the Cry of Goals. It Can't Rain All the Time. Om Mani Padme Hum, Part 1. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Just The Song of Life. Yes, I know. A tempestuous noise of thunder and lightning heard. And Yane no Mori. But if you're really that curious, just listen to the entire thing. I promise you won't regret it. It's fucking awesome. There are 3 new enemies, not including the false sun, added into this DLC. Let's go through them in a not specific order. The Child. Honestly, a pretty well balanced enemy, and I'm surprised just got it added in. But by golly, these motherfuckers' attacks deal so much damage. It's like, damn bro, that's half my health gone, chill. Also, the invincibility after teleporting is some bullshit. Remove that gearbox. Scorched Worm. The walking incarnation of a fucking rat. These enemies are really just annoying as hell. Imagine the pain of the mini mushrooms AoE that they put on the floor, but more annoying. And also, he gets invincibility underground for however the fuck long he wants. It just feels like an enemy, that's for sure, because I just want this thing off my screen the moment it shows its ugly face. The House Unite. I think these guys are pretty cool, but when they spawn in their masses, they can be super deadly and overwhelming, with all of them Beyblading, either flinging you around the stratosphere, or stun-locking you into one place and hit you with the 1-2 combo and finish you off. It sounds fucked up, but it's actually pretty fun and a neat mini-boss enemy to deal with depending on who you're playing. Survivors without movement abilities will be missed. Now, as for the elites, the Gilded Elite. Now, from what I can gather, I've been looking up these elites, and I can't really find like solid evidence as to what they do because the wiki hasn't really updated yet and all that good shit, and people are just kind of discussing this online. But from what I can gather, the Gilded Elite tanks the enemy's HP up by like ×5, and have a little bubble they produce momentarily where they can steal your gold from you when you hit either enemies nearby or the elite itself. And the Twisted Elite. As I've only seen them once, they produce a bubble similar to the Celestine elites, but instead of buffing the enemy with invisibility, buffs them with a new buff that I will coin as Retaliation, because the arrow looks like it's gonna retaliate. Which essentially means any enemy caught in this bubble with the buff will reflect any projectile you throw at it. That means any M1, M2, ATG missile, ukulele, or just any AoE in general. And yes, it's just as deadly as it sounds. The fact that you can't really hurt the enemy like directly, besides like enemies that are melee or like something that's like in the ground, like mines or some shit like that. The fact you can't really hurt them if they get caught in the bubble sucks a lot. And like I said, if you just happen to ricochet a ukulele or some sort of AoE, that shit is coming right back at you, even though it was not your initial target. It's a run ender for sure. So just focus on the elite whenever you spot it spawning and get rid of it as soon as possible. Although you won't really be encountering it without looping, so just keep that in mind. Alright, we're on to the new survivors. In the pursuit of my own sanity, because I want to go to bed so badly, I will sum up these new guys very briefly as to not keep this video extensively long. Seeker feels kinda weak in damage, though through experience with her, I suppose it's all good, since it balances with her healing and mobility passive abilities, which is noteworthy within her kit. Although I'm still not sure about the whole revive mechanic with her yet. I'm not sure if it's timed or if it works on allies or not. Just let me know down in the comments, because I'm honestly not sure. Now with Chef and Fallen Sun, I personally have not played them yet because I have not unlocked them, because my luck is terrible and I am very bad at the video game. But I will give you my opinions based on the comments and videos I've seen on them. Chef seems pretty powerful, but his M1 looks weird and should come back to you automatically. His M2 also has a long fucking cooldown and needs some better aim adjustment, especially in the verticality department. But overall, looks like a solid survivor, especially whenever my friend played him. False Sun. Now, I was excited for the False Sun as a survivor, but what I've heard and seen of him, I'm not sure anymore, because I wanted another melee survivor that wasn't loader and mercenary, because, I mean, to be frank, I've played way too much of them. But his animations seem really clunky, and his base special move looks overpowered as fuck. Although his little gimmick of growth seems like a nice reprieve to take items that you normally would scrap instead. The growth gimmick that he has, it's kind of hard to explain, so like I said, I'll leave a link to the wiki down below if you want to read about it or go see another video about it. I'm not a super duper big know-it-all in that stuff, but I bet some other people are, so they can explain it a bit better. Now, the new skins. I swear whoever made these new skins for the previous roster of survivors fucking cooked. This shit is gas, actual fire. Like, give that man a nice firm handshake and a raise, because these skins are peak for sure. Although I say that, the 3 new survivors that did come in this update didn't come with a new skin for doing the new event, which is disappointing, but I can't really say much when there is modding. Although all these new survivors that came with the DLC only having one alternate ability is just some wasted potential, and I wish there was just some mix-up to the replayability with them, because right now it's just, I mean, one ability for one of their abilities. I mean, come on, man. You could do better, Gearbox. Alright, it's time to get into the main course of this DLC, the False Sun. They tried to do Mythrix too, I'll just put it out there. They definitely tried, but he's more underwhelming in every way. His animations come out clumsy and janky, which is fine considering who the False Sun is canonically, and he has some more of a tell and a wind up before teleporting and striking at you, which is a step up in my opinion from Mythrix, but that's where my compliments end. There are 2 specific attacks that I just fucking despise, and whoever came up with them should be taken behind Gearbox Studios and shot, because holy hell, they're so unfair. One of the attacks is just the entirety of the 3rd phase, where he's sort of like Mythrix Phase 4, but instead of him stealing your items, he steals your abilities, which sounds nice on paper and sounds like a pretty cool concept, but in order to get them back, you have to use the beacons in the arena, which 90% of the time are in an open field. Although it wouldn't be much of an issue if it wasn't for the second attack that I'm talking about, which is some garbage. It's the laser that he has. I think everybody at this point is pretty infamously known about the laser. This attack can only be dodged if you're hiding behind some debris on the stage, which is not where the pillar is, which is where you should be going, or if you have Bandit and use his shift ability. But this attack is otherwise fucking impossible to dodge, and considering your abilities are taken during this phase, even Bandit isn't going to save your ass from this heat-seeking headache. And going back to his 3rd phase, it's essentially just a speed check. If you have more than enough, you should have no problem. But if you got unlucky during your run, or got there too early and cannot outpace the False Sun, then consider your run dead, because this motherfucker's going to come right behind you with a nice jog, and he's going to smack the shit out of you out of the arena, and he's going to hit you with the laser to finish you off. Because unlike Mythrix, which we're comparing to right now, you could be either far away or close up during Phase 4, and at least you had a fighting chance. Either way, depending on how powerful you were up to that point, and it didn't feel like a luck check getting up to him. That all layered with constant barrages of lightning strikes that debuff the shit out of you if you're caught off guard. It's a cool fight aesthetically, but it's really kind of fat garbage if you didn't get all that good of items. Comment if you disagree or if it's just a skill issue on my part, but from what I've done, it's more of like a solid 6 out of 10 fight. I do think it's better than Voidling though. I'll put that out there. I think Voidling was a pretty shit fight compared to this. You know what? Can we shake on that at least, please? Thus concludes the video. I hope this turns out as good as I see it being. I think all the information I've given you should be enough for you to make your own informed decision about all the DLC has to offer. This DLC definitely has its good parts, but I think the cons outweigh the pros in pretty much every way. And I'm not even considering the bugs and the whole ass code change they made, which makes modding even harder, and Xbox being all fucked up. It's bad. But at the end of the day, do I regret buying the DLC and being hyped for it? Yes. And would I strongly recommend you not buy the DLC until a large majority of the bugs and glitches are fixed and maybe some balance changes come out? Yes. That's why the title says not yet. I would just kind of patiently wait until Gearbox slowly fixes the game. Although it may not be right now, I think you should definitely just wait. But like I said, this was an opinion-based video, so don't take everything I say with merit. I just don't like seeing one of my favorite games in the state that it is, and I hope Gearbox learns from this and takes action as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. This is definitely one of the first kinds of these videos I've made, so if you enjoyed it, let me know by telling me in the comments or hitting the like button. And I'll catch you all next week.